Yew wands. Yew has appeared on every ministry restricted consideration list for over a century because it demonstrates the strongest recorded affinity for magic that manipulates life force, death force, or irreversible harm. Ollivander describes Yew as capable of producing fearless and frightening magic under the correct owner, and this dual nature is precisely why the ministry repeatedly debated restricting its sale. In early continental wand registries, Yew was classified as a funerary wood, frequently used by wizards who dealt with boundary-crossing magic, spells intended to preserve life unnaturally or sever it violently. These associations, though historical, remain embedded in the ministry's perception of the wood. Modern distrust solidified after Tom Riddle's rise. Voldemort's Yew wand demonstrated an unusual efficiency with lethal curses, curse stabilization, and destructive magic that normally drains a wizard's stamina more heavily. DMLE internal memos from the First Wizarding War show senior aurors arguing that any wizard bonded to a Yew wand should undergo annual magical behavior audits. During the Second War, a draft proposal suggested temporary confiscation of all Yew wands held by flagged individuals, citing the wand's known synergy with unforgivable curses and necromantic variants. However, Yew resisted all attempts at prohibition because its magical profile is polar rather than consistently dangerous. The same wand wood that channels lethal curses with ease can also produce extraordinary protective magic under a benevolent owner. Ministry legal advisors repeatedly concluded that wand woods cannot be classified as inherently unlawful unless their behavior is exclusively malicious, a threshold Yew does not meet. As a result, the wood remains legal but permanently watched, and it continues to appear at the top of the ministry's internal materials requiring enhanced monitoring list. Blackthorn wands. Blackthorn has a long-standing reputation as a war wand, and this classification is the core reason the ministry repeatedly reviewed it for potential restriction. According to Ollivander, Blackthorn wands choose witches or wizards who have survived hardship and whose magic is shaped by conflict, resilience, and the capacity for forceful retaliation. While this does not make the wand inherently dark, it does correlate with behavioral patterns the ministry considers high risk, rapid escalation, aggressive spellcasting, and dueling proficiency that amplifies under emotional stress. Historically, Blackthorn's profile worsened during periods of wizarding unrest. Auror Office archives from the early 20th century list Blackthorn among the wand woods most commonly recovered at sites of illegal duels, ambushes, and retaliatory strikes. Its responsiveness to high-intensity magic makes it a preferred wood among wizarding factions engaged in direct conflict, including some groups later classified as hostile or extremist. During the First Wizarding War, several captured Death Eaters carried Blackthorn wands, causing internal ministry committees to argue that the wood displayed sympathetic alignment with violent practitioners, a claim Wandlore experts still reject as oversimplified. Despite these concerns, attempts to restrict Blackthorn were repeatedly blocked due to its legitimate use among aurors, curse breakers, and border patrol units. The wand's inherent toughness and stability under pressure make it essential for defensive combat roles. This dual-use nature prevented the ministry from framing Blackthorn as a material with a solely destructive profile. Ultimately, the wood remained legal because it channels forceful magic predictably rather than corruptively. It empowers the wizard's intention rather than steering it. Walnut wands. Walnut is one of the wand woods the ministry quietly tracked during both wizarding wars because of its repeated appearance in cases involving extreme or unstable spellwork. Ollivander described walnut as a wood that prioritizes decisiveness and bold magical intent, often producing the strongest results when wielded by witches or wizards who are both intelligent and ruthlessly focused. The problem, from the ministry's perspective, is that walnut also magnifies direct, high-impact spellcasting, and it does so with unusually little magical resistance. This means a witch or wizard inclined toward dominance, coercion, or cruelty can channel magic through a walnut wand with dangerous efficiency. Bellatrix Lestrange's wand is the most notorious example. Made of walnut and paired with a dragon heartstring core, it demonstrated an affinity for high-level destructive curses, rapid-cast torture spells, and sustained dark enchantments. Ministry examiners noted that the wand's responsiveness allowed her to maintain unforgivable curses at intensities that would overwhelm most wands. This correlation between walnut and hyper-aggressive spell precision prompted internal recommendations for behavioral monitoring of walnut wand owners, particularly those already flagged for unstable magical patterns. Outside terrorism cases, historical dueling records show walnut wands appearing in several incidents where combat escalated unusually quickly. While Wandlore experts stress that wood cannot corrupt its owner, the ministry remained concerned that walnut reduces magical friction between a dark caster and the effects they intend to produce. However, because the wood is also prized in fields requiring complex, high-level spell construction, including arithmancy, spellcraft research, and advanced transfiguration, total restriction was never viable. Chestnut wands. Chestnut is one of the most misunderstood wandwoods, and its presence on ministry restriction drafts stems from its unusually strong responsiveness to witches and wizards involved in advanced magical experimentation. Ollivander documented that chestnut wands vary greatly depending on the owner's core traits, but they show a distinctive attraction to individuals who practice complex magic that manipulates living things. Historically, chestnut users excelled in herbology, care of magical creatures, potions, and healing, all disciplines that interact directly with biological processes. However, this same affinity made chestnut a recurrent feature in cases involving ethically questionable magical research. Ministry archiving records show several 19th and early 20th century investigations where chestnut wands were recovered in incidents involving unauthorized creature experimentation, potion misuse, or transfiguration practices that crossed legal boundaries. The concern was not that chestnut actively encouraged dark behavior, rather the wand amplified whatever experimental instincts the owner already possessed. In the wrong hands, this resulted in rapid escalation from academic curiosity into dangerous manipulation of living organisms or volatile magical substances. A contributing factor to its reputation was the number of chestnut wand owners invoiced for violations under the Regulation of Magical Creatures Act and the Restricted Potions Use Statute. The wand's precision and flexibility made it particularly effective for experimental spellcraft, which alarmed the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures during inquiries into unauthorized hybridization and controlled magical breeding. While these cases represented a minority of users, the patterns appeared frequently enough for the ministry to consider imposing licensing requirements on chestnut. Ultimately, chestnut remained legal due to its vast legitimate use in healing and creature handling professions, both of which rely heavily on its adaptive magical profile. Rowan wands. Rowan is widely recorded as one of the most protective wandwoods, which is precisely why its presence on ministry restriction drafts created internal controversy. Traditionally, Rowan wands excel at defensive magic, anti-curse work, and enchantments designed to shield or purify. Yet the ministry's concern arises from a rarer but documented phenomenon: Rowan wands becoming dangerously reactive when paired with witches or wizards who possess rigid ideological convictions. In these cases, the wand's pure defensive alignment can amplify into extreme, uncompromising magical force. Ollivander noted that Rowan produces the most reliable defensive charms, but he also warned that a wand's behavior depends entirely on the witch or wizard who wields it. Several archived ministry cases detail Rowan wand owners whose unwavering moral certainty escalated into fanatical magical behavior. In each instance, the wand channeled defensive magic so forcefully that it became indistinguishable from aggressive spell work. The wood's purity does not neutralize harmful intent. Instead, it empowers whatever conviction lies at its core. One of the earliest concerns came from a late 19th century inquiry, in which a Rowan wand was used to cast overpowering protective enchantments that endangered bystanders by sealing them inside collapsing structures. Though the magic was not dark in origin, the outcome was catastrophic enough to trigger formal review. Later, during wartime paranoia, Rowan appeared on lists of woods requiring psychological compatibility assessment, reflecting fears that an inflexible owner could use the wand to enforce their beliefs with excessive magical force. Rowan avoided restriction because the majority of its users remain balanced, and its protective capabilities are essential in healing and defensive branches of magic. Still, the ministry continues to monitor extreme cases where defensive purity becomes magically hazardous. Black walnut. Black walnut is one of the rarest wandwoods in Britain, and its rarity is matched only by the ministry's persistent suspicion toward it. Unlike traditional walnut, which rewards bold magical intent, black walnut is extraordinarily selective and will refuse to perform for any witch or wizard whose self-knowledge is incomplete or conflicted. Ollivander explicitly notes that a black walnut wand demands a master of good instincts, and this requirement proved central to the ministry's concern. When paired with the wrong owner, the wand's behavior can become dangerously unpredictable. Ministry case files from the late 19th century record several incidents involving black walnut wands behaving with extreme volatility during stress events. In each case, the wand amplified sudden shifts in the owner's moral or emotional state, producing spells that were either far stronger or far weaker than intended. This instability made the Department of Magical Law Enforcement consider the wood a behaviorally reactive magical instrument, a term later used for wands suspected of magnifying psychological imbalance. The most alarming observation came from Auror's psychological reviews during the First Wizarding War. Black walnut wands carried by wizarding officers showed spikes in spell intensity whenever the caster faced internal ethical conflict, a trait that could cause catastrophic misfires in high-risk environments. Several internal proposals recommended restricting black walnut to trained magical professions with mandatory behavioral screening, though none passed due to the wood's positive performance under stable, self-aware users. Ultimately, the Ministry concluded that black walnut is not inherently dark but remains unusually sensitive to the intentions and emotional clarity of its owner. This heightened responsiveness places the wood under quiet scrutiny, especially when paired with individuals who demonstrate volatile or conflicted magical profiles. Elder Wands. The Elder Wand is the most powerful wand ever recorded, and although the Ministry never formally attempted to ban it, internal documents show repeated efforts to classify its wood, elder, as a material of unacceptable destructive potential. The wood itself has long been associated with instability and extreme magical amplification. Ollivander notes that Elder Wands have a troublesome reputation, often pairing with owners who attract conflict or meet violent ends. While this behavior is not proof of inherent darkness, the Ministry views Elder as the only wand wood consistently linked to catastrophic magical outcomes. The historical record supports their concern. Every known master of the Elder Wand, from Antioch Peverell to Gellert Grindelwald, participated in duels or magical events that resulted in lethal force. The wand's responsiveness to near-limitless power makes it uniquely dangerous in the hands of wizards skilled enough to control it. The Ministry's greatest fear, reflected in suppressed policy drafts from the early 20th century, is that Elder Wands reduce the magical resistance threshold, allowing deadly spells to be cast with far less strain than through any other wood. This makes the wand an outlier even within rare wand classifications. Attempts to legislate Elder wood stalled because the wand is nearly impossible to craft successfully. Elder rejects most cores, fails for the majority of owners, and frequently becomes unstable when handled by wizards who do not properly command it. The lack of reproducibility prevented the Ministry from introducing material-based bans, yet Elder remains the wand wood most frequently cited in high-level security briefings, and it is the only wood for which the Ministry has drafted full containment procedures should an Elder wand reappear.